Hello again, silly geese, quackers. Welcome back to part 5 of the Catching Fire is a Great Film Adaptation series. Remember, we are here to look at whether the films honor the original text and characters. And today we're going to be diving back into the Victory Tour, straight on through to the President's Mansion. Just a quick note, because the movie treats the Victory Tour as sort of a montage, the way that things play out is pretty different than it is in the books. We're going to rearrange some things so that we can talk about how the changes affect the story more clearly. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that.
Katniss and I want to share with you our victory and our gratitude.
I skipped this in the District 11 stop of the Victory Tour because there was so much else that we needed to cover. But I want to talk about how these ceremonies are arranged in the movies. Look at this screenshot. If we only looked at this image, you might think, based on the way the two people are featured on the screens and the fact that everyone appears to be wearing dark colored clothing, that this is a funeral or a memorial service. I mentioned in the last video on the District 11 stop of the Victory Tour that the Victory Tour is meant to be a celebration, that the choice to change Katniss's clothing from a brightly colored dress to a black top and pants undermined the purpose that the ceremony was actually meant to serve. But this time I want to look at how she describes the ceremonies themselves. Crowds applaud, banners are hung. If District 8 is any indication, these banners feature Peeta's and Katniss's faces, not their own fallen tributes. They're given flowers, the mayor gives a speech in their honor, then the victors give a speech to the district. In at least some places, they receive plaques. All of these ceremonies are followed by dinners, which often include dancing, and sometimes there is a brief tour of the district. When it's done for the fallen tributes, victors are invited to offer personal remarks for their fallen allies, or at least they were until after the District 11 stop. And the families of the fallen tributes are sat at the special platforms made for them at the bottom of the stage. That's it. We don't get the same sort of memorial type feel that we get in the screenshot because to the Capitol, the loss of these children is not a loss. It's simply a necessary evil to keep the machine running. So instead, the districts are asked to celebrate the one or two that got to live while the others died, with their districts plastered with the faces of the victors, the living symbols of the machine that killed their children.
And true love that allows us all to bear our hardships, that mends the
sorrows of your losses, the tributes of this great and noble warriors. They brought honor to their families and pride to their people.
The power and glory of the Capitol.
Tell us what you really think.
Panem today, Panem tomorrow, Panem forever.
There's something really interesting about how the movies portray the crowds of Panem. In the film, we see public disapproval because Katniss won't express herself. We see political signaling when we see the man arrested for doing the District 12 salute. And we don't see that in the book. Instead, this is how the crowds are described. Some crowds have the weary cattle feel that I know District 12 usually projects at the victor ceremonies. But in others, particularly 8, 4, and 3, there is a genuine elation in the faces of the people at the sight of us. And under the elation, fury. I know that there's nothing I could ever do to change this. We don't see this mix of emotions in the crowds in the film. We see people in the crowd calling for her to tell them what she really thinks. Why would the film make this change? Because this is how we see public figures. Because we believe that our right to free speech is protected, we expect people in positions of privilege to speak authentically. That's what feels right to us. But Katniss, Peeta, the people in the districts, even the people in the Capitol, they very much do not have free speech. No one is expecting Katniss to speak out directly. The crowds, the victors, even Snow know that they're all playing a role, that they need to stay on script. Because these moments where the script requires for the people to come together, this is where people can rehearse mobilization and resistance. We learn this when Katniss finds two escapees from 8, Bonnie and Twill, at the cabin by the lake. The day Peeta and I came through and made our victory tour appearance was actually a rehearsal of sorts. People in the crowd positioned themselves according to their teams, next to the buildings they would target when the rebellion broke out. The night of my engagement was the night the uprising began. It was an ideal cover. Our victory tour interview with Caesar Flickerman was mandatory viewing. It gave people of District 8 a reason to be out on the streets after dark, gathering either in the square or in various community centers around the city to watch. Ordinarily, such activity would have been too suspicious. Instead, everyone was in place by the appointed hour, 8 o'clock, when the masks went on and all hell broke loose. We don't see this scene in the film. We don't meet Bonnie and Twill at all. But if we take their plan from the books and look at it, what we see is that the people of Panem, of the districts, they don't have the right to assemble, and they take the opportunities presented in the victory tour and use them to their advantage. In the books, we see a version of resistance that isn't quite as loud as we're used to, because it's not safe to be that loud. Instead, they rehearse their plans. They're careful. They wait until they have cover to come together. The film trades a more realistic portrayal of resistance for moments that feel good. And in doing so, they change what we expect resistance to look like.
No, it's just a dream. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I get them too.
Will you stay with me?
Always.
Let's take a minute to look at what Katniss and Peeta's relationship really is supposed to look like at this point. Due to the stress of the tour, Katniss's PTSD symptoms go into overdrive. She's having nightmares all the time when she finally is able to sleep. In the book, we see Peeta, who is also not able to sleep, hears Katniss screaming and comes to comfort her. He manages to wake me and calm me down. Then he climbs into bed to hold me until I fall back asleep. We do not see her asking Peeta to stay with her the way we do in the film. I think that they added this moment for a couple of reasons. One, they cut the scene where Katniss is under the influence of sleep syrup, where we actually get the always line. And two, they wanted her to reach for Peeta to help build up the love triangle that they insist on in the film. After that first night on the train, Katniss and Peeta continue to sleep together. So later, when Katniss does ask Peeta to stay, it's after they have already established this relationship, after she has already come to see him as a figure of comfort and safety. For context, Katniss's mom gives her sleep syrup to help her cope with her now broken foot and her pretty severely bruised tailbone after she falls from a tree trying to re-enter District 12 after the fence had been electrified, when she was outside meeting Bonnie and Twill on accident at the lake. Yeah, it's a lot. Peeta tucks me in and says goodnight, but I catch his hand and hold him there. A side effect of the sleep syrup is that it makes people less inhibited. I want him to climb in with me, to be there when the nightmares hit tonight. For some reason, I can't quite form. I know I'm not allowed to ask that. Don't go yet. Not until I fall asleep, I say. I can feel myself slipping away, so I just get out one more sentence. Stay with me. As the tendrils of sleep pull me down, I hear him whisper a word back, but I don't quite catch it. Spoiler alert, the word is always. And we're seeing a difference in the relationship between Katniss and Peeta here. In the books, we don't see Katniss pursue more from the relationship than has already been established. While she knows that she shouldn't ask because she chose to stay with Gale, she's under the influence here. She's not manipulating Peeta or using him. She's seeking safety.
Thank you.
One day, I'm gonna volunteer, just like you did.
When did you start wearing it like that?
Everyone at school wears it like this now, Grandpa.
I've talked about this before in one of the earlier videos in the series, but Katniss is a cultural phenomenon after her games. And I love that they show us this by offering two different examples of little girls modeling themselves after her. The little girl from what I assume is 2 based on her outfit, saying that she can't wait to volunteer like Katniss, and Snow's own granddaughter wearing her hair like Katniss. They did a great job with this.
If he wants you to pacify the districts, I promise you, he's not happy.
I'm open to suggestions.
You could get married.
That's not helping.
I'm serious. If, like you said, we're on this train forever, it's gonna happen eventually. Why not now?
He does make a statement, I'll give you that.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
This moment is pretty well executed, but we don't get the double standard quite as clearly in the films as we do in the books. So let's take a minute to break it down. I mentioned this in the love triangle video, that Katniss loses agency over her own narrative the moment that Peeta shares his feelings in his interview before the 74th Games. In that moment, she's cast as a love interest, whether she likes it or not. And Katniss follows through on that strategy. The strategy that Haymitch reinforces with the timing of his gifts. And I do want to acknowledge that there was no way to know that this moment was going to define the rest of their lives, because no one had any idea that the two of them could leave the arena. But Katniss loses her say in the narrative nonetheless. Now we see her buy into the narrative. Katniss suggests that Peeta proposes to her. And in the film, he is pretty stiff about it, which makes sense given the circumstances. But book Peeta's reaction is a little bit different. Back in our old quarters in the training center, I'm the one who suggests the public marriage proposal. Peeta agrees to do it, but then disappears to his room for a long time. Haymitch tells me to leave him alone. I thought he wanted it anyway, I say. Not like this, Haymitch says. He wanted it to be real. The double standard that I mentioned is that Haymitch recognizes that Peeta's losing his agency, and he sympathizes with that. When it happens to Katniss, he tells her that she should be grateful. That is a small difference, but I wanted to make a note of it.
Our two lethal lovers, my favorite expression, from District 12, have surprised us with a new twist in their love affair. Let's take a look. A fairy tale ending for two star-crossed lovers. That's beautiful.
As we see in the film, Peeta does do the public proposal. But unlike what we see in the film, when he does, President Snow makes a special surprise appearance. Snow embraces me, enfolding me in the smell of blood and roses, and plants a puffy kiss on my cheek. When he pulls back, his fingers digging into my arms, his face smiles into mine. I dare to raise my eyebrows. They ask what my lips can't. Did I do it? Was it enough? He gives an almost imperceptible shake of his head. In the film, we get this moment a little bit later when Snow is at his mansion party and he shakes his head at Katniss from a balcony on his mansion, and while the audience is facing towards the fireworks, it does seem a little bit risky to do it in such a visible location. Book Snow, at least in public, does not behave in a way that is obviously threatening. Instead, he's almost jovial at their announcement. When President Snow silences the audience and says, "What do you think about us throwing them a wedding right here in the Capitol?" I pull off girl almost catatonic with joy without a hitch. Caesar Flickerman asks if the president has a date in mind. "Oh, before we set a date, we better clear it with Katniss's mother," says the president. The audience gives a big laugh and the president puts his arm around me. "Maybe, if the whole country puts its mind to it, we can get you married before you're 30. "You'll probably have to pass a new law," I say with a giggle. "If that's what it takes," says the president with conspiratorial good humor. Oh, the fun we two have together. This is another moment where Book Snow is very socially adept and strategic. He publicly aligns with Katniss here. Let's look at how the film handles Snow's reaction to their engagement.
Tonight, on this the last day of their tour, I want to welcome our two victors, two young people who embody our ideals of strength and valor. And I personally want to congratulate them on the announcement of their engagement. Your love has inspired us, and I know it will go on inspiring us every day for as long as you may live.
This version of Snow is almost like a mob boss rather than the cunning political opponent that we know Book Snow to be. Now let's watch more of the party because overall they do handle this pretty well.
Is right. Chins up, smiles on. I'm talking to you, Katniss. Excuse us. Everybody who's anybody's here, and they all want to meet you.
Try one of these. They are divine.
No, I can't eat another thing.
Here,
What's this?
it's for when you're full. It makes you sick, so you can go on eating. How else could you taste everything?
People are starving in 12. Here they're just throwing it out to stuff more in.
Katniss?
They include a lot of the important parts of this party, like the drink that Octavia and Flavius offer them. But an interesting thing that they don't include in this scene is that Mockingjay accessories are all the rage in the capital right now. Apparently my Mockingjay pin has spawned a new fashion sensation. My bird has been replicated on belt buckles, embroidered into silk lapels, even tattooed in intimate places. And at least as far as I can tell, we don't see that anywhere. I think that there are two reasons that they made this choice. First, for whatever reason, they decided to act like Katniss taking the Mockingjay pin into the arena was a secret in the first movie. And second, for the sake of visual language, it is a lot easier to communicate to the audience that this symbol is associated with the rebels if they don't also have capital people wearing it.
This is Plutarch Heavensby, head game maker, successor to Seneca Crane.
It's a fact to follow.
May I?
Please.
So how do you like the party?
It's a little overwhelming.
Still, if you abandon your moral judgment, it can be fun.
So are you having fun?
I'm the head game maker. Fun is my job.
Thought that was what happened to Seneca Crane. Too much fun.
Seneca decided to quit breathing.
Decided.
Is that or poison berries? Being head game maker has never been the most secure job in the world.
Then why are you here?
Same reason as you. I volunteered. A chance to make the games mean something.
The games don't mean anything. They only mean to scare us.
Well, maybe it was you who inspired me to come back.
We do get this dance scene with Plutarch with some notable changes. In the film, we see Plutarch and Katniss go back and forth about why he decided to take on the position of head game maker for the 75th Games. But in the book, this conversation is much more loaded and covert. He tells her that they're already working on the flavor of the next games. Believe it or not, I've got a strategy meeting tonight, he says. Plutarch steps back and pulls out a gold watch on a chain from a vest pocket. He flips open the lid, sees the time, and frowns. I'll have to be going soon. He turns the watch so I can see it. It starts at midnight. That seems late for, I say, but then something distracts me. Plutarch has run his thumb across the crystal face of the watch, and for just a moment, an image appears, glowing as if lit by candlelight. Another Mockingjay. If anyone asks about me, say I've gone home to bed. The meetings are supposed to be kept secret, but I thought I'd be safe to tell you. So here we have Plutarch sharing a few pieces of vital information. Katniss doesn't catch any of it until later, but that's okay. We have Book Plutarch trying to convey to Katniss that he's on her side by showing her a disappearing Mockingjay symbol on his watch. And the fact that it disappears is incredibly important because most of the other capital people that have Mockingjay symbols have it in some fashion that is pretty permanent, made of metal or tattooed into their skin. Katniss does notice that something is weird about this conversation, but she can't quite place it. We do have him hinting at the arena of the 75th Games, telling her that it starts at midnight, meaning the rotation of challenges. He also trusts her with information that could potentially get him in trouble as a bid for trust. Unfortunately, Katniss is not a trusting person and it doesn't land, but the attempt was made nonetheless. And this conversation is practically the end of the President's Mansion party for Katniss and her team. They load up onto the train, head back to District 12 for the Harvest Festival, which is not shown here. While I understand they're cutting things that don't seem necessary for runtime, they pretty consistently do not acknowledge that your whole community benefits when you are a victor. This is part of why there would be continual buy-in from people, even though the cost of participating in the games is so high. I just thought that was worth mentioning again. That's a wrap on part 5. Through the Victory Tour, we see that the film continuously softens the complexity of living under an authoritarian regime and ignores the constraints of organizing when you don't have a right to assembly or a right to free speech. We see the Victory Tour end with the knowledge that Katniss has failed to calm the districts. Next time, we will see how the Capitol escalates control in District 12. See you there, Quackers!